Coming up on Not the End, NDE.
And I left my body, and again, I went into this incredible, expansive white light, and my family was there. And it was such an incredible reunion. It was so emotional. And there were these beings of white light, and sometimes they morphed into humans, and sometimes they morphed into horses, which is where I first experienced my spiritual relationship with my horsekin.
Many have died and returned to tell of their near-death experiences. Their incredible stories reveal to the living that this is not the end.
Hi, my name is Lidia Kuleshnyk. I'm a high-performance wellness coach specializing in chronic stress and chronic illness for the last 30 years. I'm the founder of aponyhealing.com, and it was through my journey of healing myself that I had really phenomenal near-death experiences, particularly when I was in my cocoon of healing, a period of time where I decided to finally resolve to finally heal the chronic health conditions that I was born with. I was born with deformed internal organs, and at the age of 10, I took a stand for myself and said I was not going to live a life in decline, that there must be a way for me to heal. So I went on a quest to heal myself, starting at the age of 10, and I read The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, and found motivation and deep insight in Taoism, in the Lord of the Rings books and the Little House on the Prairie books, that were actually great guides for me in my childhood and in my youth. And as I progressed on my healing journey, I realized that I really had to go deep to not just heal my condition, but also to heal my constitution, so I could go forward and live the life that I wanted, which at the time I thought was continuing with my career in climate change, in international environmental policy, and prior to that as a mental health therapist. So I immersed myself in my healing cocoon, with Reiki energy healing and macrobiotic healing foods. And I was very frail when I went into my cocoon of healing, and it was very difficult. I was very weak, and sometimes I couldn't even walk. I had to hold on to the walls of my apartment just to get from my bed to the bathroom, and then from the bathroom to the kitchen. But at that time, when I was very frail, I actually died twice. And I have two near-death experiences that were directly related to me knowing that my heart stopped. And so I had sat down out of exhaustion and sort of passed out. I think one time I may have just fallen asleep. And in both near-death experiences, I started traveling. I left my body and I started traveling through this incredibly bright, expansive tunnel of light. And I felt such relief, and I just felt really centered. And I was just moving with this flow of light, and it got brighter and brighter and more expansive and more expansive. And in the beginning, you kind of see the edges, like sort of like the dark edges of the tunnel, but I was in the white light of the tunnel. And then it got bigger and bigger. And then I saw like a book with pages of a book, like rapidly turning like in split seconds. And I realized every page was a page of my life. So I knew that I was having my life review. And this was at the age of 29. When I was, as I said, so weak. I couldn't even swallow at times. Like my body, I had lost most biological functions. And I was in this cocoon of healing for me to recover. never thinking I would ever have any of these near-death experiences or spiritual multidimensional experiences, but they just happened. And so when I got to the most expansive place of radiant white light, and I just felt this um, centered feeling of peace, that everything was okay. And as I was shown my life review, as my life flashed before my eyes, like literally like a book, like your life was like a book, but rapidly moving through the pages, I thought, yeah, okay, everything's okay. I feel good about my life. I didn't have any conscious dialogue around that. And then this incredible white light enveloped me with a love beyond, it's just beyond an English word. It's beyond an intellectual understanding on the earth plane. And then in a flash, I was back. I was back on my sofa or on my bed. I had the two experiences with the tunnel of light, and disappointed. Disappointed that I was back, not because I didn't want to continue with what I was doing, but because I missed being in the light. And I had other experiences in my cocoon of healing that were equally as magnificent. You may call them near-death experiences or spontaneous multidimensional parallel dimension experiences, where I'd be so frail or weak that I would actually feel in my heart. There was a power generating station several blocks away from where I lived in my little apartment on a hill, and that would charge up 2 or 3 times a day. And normally we don't even notice that it happens. But I was so frail that every time the power generating station would reboot or recharge, I would feel it in my body. And one time I passed out, or I was in a deep sleep state, and I left my body. And again, I went into this incredible, expansive white light, and my family was there. And it was such an incredible reunion. It was so emotional. And there were these beings of white light, and sometimes they morphed into humans, and sometimes they morphed into horses, which is where I first experienced my spiritual relationship with my horsekin, that my spiritual brothers and sisters, humans and horses, but they were white light, and we were all equal. And they embraced me, and they said to me how they missed me. Oh, I'm gonna cry. And that I was doing well on my journey, and I had been traveling for a very long time in the universe. That I was something like a traveler of the universe, and it had been a long time since I had been home. And their essence of their being was again beyond. It was like beyond mortal comprehension. And when I returned back, at some point we had a discussion, and I, again, just in a flash, I was back. And in this experience, I woke up and I walked to the washroom as best as I could at the time. And I looked in the mirror, and I was 29, and I looked younger. Like I didn't care if I looked younger, but because I was still in the frequency of that high universal love that is the fabric of the universe. And I just looked radiant, like I looked sort of like one of them, but on the earth. And then as the day went on, and I returned to the frequency of the earth and what I had to do for myself at the time, which was to heal myself. And then I looked more like myself, and I started to look tired and drawn out and frail again. But I'll always remember that, how it felt to feel and to radiate that eternal light of unconditional love of a magnitude that we can't really comprehend here on earth. And other experiences that I had where I again, was very frail, very weak, wasn't sure if I could feel my heart beating or not, and would pass out. And in one experience, I was just pure consciousness. So this is a different type of experience. I don't know what all the different experiences mean in terms of how it all relates. I mean, different levels of consciousness, perhaps. But I was just consciousness, and it was like there was a beautiful night sky, and the white stars were, two of the white stars were my eyes, but I had no form. I wasn't floating. I wasn't flying. I had no form. I was formless, but I was pure consciousness. And I could communicate telepathically as pure consciousness. And it was so liberating. And it was so a feeling of secure and wholeness and just the essence of your being, and peace, but also fully empowered, you know. And the other night stars were the eyes of the states of consciousness of other beings that I was communicating with. And it was so much fun. And I remember that for the rest of my life. I remember returning from that thinking, when I leave, I will not take anything material. Of course, we don't take our body, but I will bring with me what I create, my consciousness. I will experience that which I create. So the choices that I made, the impact that I have, I will feel 1,000-fold on the non-physical, because the material world is so dense compared to the non-physical. I could feel the gratitude and the joy of that which I lived and created for myself and for others when I left the physical in my near-death experiences. And I did have one near-death experience. Again, I was so weak and frail, and I wasn't even sure if I was alive or not. I was just kind of lying there and again passed out. And this was early on in my cocoon of healing, that I left my body and there were layers of energy, and the layers had different colors. And one of my mentors at the time came to me as like a spirit guide and said, you can do it. You can move through these layers. And some of them were heavy and difficult, and I was afraid. I was afraid to move through the layers. And he was coaching me on, saying, you can do it. And I was trying in the out-of-body state to move through one of these layers, and it was fear. I had fear around something. I don't remember what it was, if it was from a past life. At the time, I don't remember retaining what the fear was, but it was effort, and I wanted to move through the fear, and I was being guided and literally coached to move through this layer of fear. And then when I woke up, when I returned in a flash, I was half off my bed. So I had my arm hanging on the floor, my body half on my bed, because I had been trying so hard to dissolve, break through, move through this layer of fear that I had. And from that near-death experience, I realized that, again, what I create in this lifetime, I carry with me. So it's a process that if I want to feel free and whole and experience greater states of being in my next life, I'm creating it now in this life. So from all of my near-death experiences, and I've had many, I mean, they're phenomenal. I had one that I was laying down, and again, I went into a trance, or I passed out from weakness, and then I went through, I could feel my energy dropping through these dimensions, and I had a conversation with some beings, these magnificent beings of light that I don't, again, remember exactly who they were. And we were having a serious conversation about the next thing for me to do, my next mission. And we discussed it, and we thought deeply about it, and then I agreed to it, but I don't remember what I agreed to. But as I returned to my body, it was phenomenal. I could feel my energy, my essence, my spirit or soul, whatever you want to call it, return back into my physical. And then it just jolted in, and I could feel my heart pulsing and pumping and vibrating again. And then I was so fulfilled that I had agreed to this mission that you just don't want to move when you physically, like you're just in the essence of the non-physical, eternal state of being. And it was so incredible. So it's so deeply fulfilling. And then as I returned again, I had to get up, I had things to do. Then I carried that feeling with me for some time. And then you go back, to the functionality of life, but you don't lose that which you experienced when you merged, the physical with the non-physical and the near-death experiences. And so that's what I took away with me, that the rest of my life, first of all, for me, would be a preparation. My choices, be very, very discerning of my choices. What are they creating? What am I creating for myself and for others? Not just now in this moment of gratification, instant gratification, or superficial needs, but what am I truly creating? Because I will experience that 1,000-fold when I leave my body. I'll experience that which others experienced because I'm connected to the oneness. We're all part of the one. We're the individual consciousness, like the stars experience that I had in the night sky, but within the night sky. And then realizing I don't have attachment. I don't have attachment to the drama, to the fear, to the frustration, even to desires. That desire is to create from a place of unconditional love as best as we can, as we go through the earth journey. So that's what I took with me for the rest of my life. That's how I created my Epona healing services. And that's what I bring with me in my pathways of services that I offer to clients. But I always check in and remember my phenomenal near-death experiences and multidimensional experiences that brought me like a quickening of expanded consciousness that grounded me in navigating my life forward.
How is this story meaningful to you? If you're watching on YouTube, tell us in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, leave a review and tell us there. If you or someone you know have a similar kind of story, please also leave that in the comments or send us a message at our website. Maybe we'll feature you. Visit nottheendNDE.com. Be blessed and a blessing, my friends.